I always believed family could be chosen, but some bonds were meant to last forever. After marrying, I thought I had stepped into a life of stability and warmth, yet it was the quiet moments at home that meant the most. My stepson David was polite, attentive, and in every way the perfect child. He always asked about my day, noticed the little things like when I was tired or seemed distracted, and made gestures that were small but thoughtful. A cup of tea waiting for me, a message on my phone checking if I had eaten, a soft voice asking if I needed help with chores. These were gestures that made me feel appreciated, noticed, and most importantly, trusted. I found myself confiding in him about my worries, my small fears, the stress of balancing work and home. It felt natural, as if he was a mirror reflecting my life and understanding and care that I trusted him. I trusted his words, his smiles, the gentle way he always waited for me to finish speaking before answering. There was a sense of security in that trust. I shared personal stories, small secrets I hadn't told anyone else, and he listened without judgment, offering advice only when I asked. It was in those moments that I felt seen, valued, and protected. The world outside could be chaotic, but inside our home there was calm. I thought nothing could disturb it. The way he laughed when I told a silly story, the way he remembered small details about my life, even my favorite foods or the way I liked my tea, made me feel connected in a way I had not expected from a stepson. It was almost effortless, natural, and that made it feel real. I started seeing him not only as my stepson, but as someone I could rely on in ways I hadn't anticipated. He became part of my routine in subtle ways, a constant presence that I valued deeply. Sometimes when I returned from a long day, he would be there without me noticing, offering a smile, a gentle comment, a small comfort that I didn't know I needed. My heart softened toward him, and I felt a profound gratitude that he had accepted me into his life as if I belonged there. The trust we shared was unspoken but palpable, a bond one assumed was mutual and innocent. The warmth of that trust created a sense of ease I hadn't felt in years. I began to believe that no one in my life could hurt me or betray that sense of safety. I allowed myself to relax completely, to let my guard down, and to share more of myself than I normally would with anyone. I didn't suspect that the kindness, the attentiveness, the respect that seemed so genuine could hide a darker reality. I believed in the truth of the moments we shared, in the authenticity of his concern and care. In my mind, our bond was unshakable, a small sanctuary within a complicated world. And yet, sometimes the very closeness that comforts us can be the most dangerous vulnerability we possess. At first, the changes were almost imperceptible, like shadows moving just at the edge of vision. David started staying a little longer in the room when I was distracted, offering help that I hadn't asked for, lingering with a glance that made my stomach twist for reasons I didn't want to name. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself he was just being considerate, that perhaps I was overthinking the details of his attentiveness. Yet, there was a pattern forming, small incidents that nagged at the back of my mind, a whisper of doubt I couldn't quite silence. He began asking questions that felt too personal about my habits, my routines, things no stepson should need to know. Sometimes I noticed him standing quietly just outside my line of sight, watching while I moved about the house. I would catch him in reflections on glass doors, mirrors, or even the shimmer of sunlight across the kitchen counter. Each time I told myself it was imagination, that I was reading too much into ordinary moments. But the tension grew, subtle at first, then more pronounced. My heart would flutter for no reason, my hands would tighten around the cup I was holding, and a small knot of unease would settle in my chest. I didn't want to acknowledge it because to do so meant questioning someone I had come to trust completely. The messages started next. Innocuous at first, short texts asking if I was free, if I wanted to talk. But the tone gradually shifted, becoming more intimate, more suggestive of emotions I didn't expect from a family relationship. I found myself hesitating before replying, feeling a heat of confusion and guilt I couldn't place. Part of me wanted to ignore the feelings, to dismiss the attention as harmless. Another part of me recognized the line being crossed, but could not name it openly. Every glance, every word, every small gesture suddenly carried layers I wasn't ready to see. Even in his smiles there was something different, something lingering, a subtle weight in his eyes that unsettled me without explanation. I tried to maintain normalcy, pretending nothing was amiss, continuing to confide in him and rely on his help. I told myself he was still the stepson I had trusted, the one who made my life easier and brighter. But the balance felt fragile, like a delicate vase teetering on a narrow ledge. I started noticing small secrets. His phone left on the counter, his sudden hesitations when I asked questions, the way he deflected conversations when I tried to get clarity. The trust one had cherished began to twist into confusion. I wanted to see him as innocent, as the son I thought I knew, but my instincts whispered a warning I couldn't ignore. Every interaction became layered with ambiguity. Was his kindness genuine, or was it a mask? Each subtle touch, each lingering glance became a question mark in my mind. I felt myself teetering between denial and suspicion, unable to reconcile the warmth of the past with the discomfort of the present. The very closeness that had once been my comfort now felt like a trap, a prelude to something I wasn't prepared to face. And yet, I could not bring myself to confront it directly, not yet, because admitting suspicion meant facing the possibility that the person I had trusted most could be the one to hurt me. The moment of truth hit me like a cold, sharp wind. I never imagined that someone I had trusted so completely could turn into the source of such profound pain. It began with a message left carelessly on his phone, a glimpse of words that made my stomach drop and my heart hammer against my ribs. The tone, the intent, it was unmistakable. What I had dismissed as subtle unease or overthinking now demanded acknowledgement. I realized that the trust one had placed in David was not only misplaced but had been exploited. The small, lingering gestures that once felt caring now revealed themselves as manipulation, carefully orchestrated to disarm me, to create confusion and vulnerability. I replayed every moment we had shared, every kind word, every thoughtful action, and suddenly they took on a different hue. The attentiveness I had valued so deeply now seemed calculated, each gesture designed to make me lower my guard. My mind raced as I tried to reconcile the person I thought I knew with the reality that was now undeniable. The betrayal was not loud or violent. It was quiet, insidious, and personal. It cut deeper because it came from someone I had welcomed into my life, someone I had allowed close enough to touch my heart. The foundation I had believed unshakable crumbled under the weight of realization. I could feel my emotions shifting rapidly. Shock, disbelief, anger, and heartbreak all colliding at once. My hands shook as I held the evidence, the proof that made denial impossible. I wanted to turn away, to pretend I had imagined it, but every instinct screamed at me to face it. There was no ignoring the truth, no rationalizing this time. The person I had trusted most was not who he appeared to be, and I had to confront that reality. I remembered every subtle clue I had ignored, the glances that lingered too long, the questions that were too probing, the moments when he was just a little too present, always watching, always anticipating. It all made sense now, and the sense of betrayal was suffocating. I confronted my own vulnerability first, recognizing that I had allowed someone to cross boundaries I never should have allowed. The trust one had given so freely was now a tool for manipulation. My heart ached not only for the actions themselves but for the innocence lost, the faith in family bonds that could be shattered so easily. The emotional pain was raw and unrelenting, a storm that left me trembling. Yet at the center of it I found clarity. I understood the importance of boundaries, of listening to instincts, and of valuing my own sense of safety above misplaced loyalty. The aftermath of discovery was a whirlwind of thought and reflection. I knew that I could no longer see David in the same light. The warmth and trust one had cherished were replaced with caution, a heightened awareness of human complexity, and the fragility of emotional bonds. I felt a bitter mixture of sorrow and resolve, sorrow for the betrayal itself, but resolve to reclaim my sense of agency and strength. It was a painful lesson, but one that marked the end of naivety and the beginning of cautious self-protection. The person I had trusted had revealed his true nature, and there was no turning back from the clarity of that revelation. I would never allow such vulnerability to be exploited again. The days after the revelation were heavy with silence and thought. I moved through the house with a new awareness, noticing every corner, every shadow, every subtle echo of the life I had built. The trust one had once given freely was now tempered with caution, a protective barrier that had formed around my heart. I realized that moving forward would require more than simply acknowledging betrayal. It meant reclaiming control, asserting boundaries, and finding strength in my own judgment. I could no longer allow someone's hidden intentions to dictate my emotions or undermine my sense of self. I started taking deliberate steps to distance myself emotionally and physically from the source of hurt. I avoided situations where I would feel vulnerable, created personal space, and refocused on my own routines and priorities. Every action, no matter how small, felt like a reclaiming of my power. The quiet moments I had once shared with David now became reminders of my resilience. I confronted the reality of what had happened without rage, without revenge, but with a steady recognition that trust must be earned, boundaries must be respected, and emotional safety is paramount. Reflection became a tool for healing. I thought about the lessons embedded in this painful experience: the necessity of paying attention to instinct, the importance of clarity in relationships, and the value of emotional self-preservation. I recognized that betrayal often comes from those we least expect, and that the heart's generosity, while beautiful, can also be exploited. It was a sobering understanding, yet it carried with it a quiet empowerment. I no longer felt naive or helpless. I felt vigilant, aware, and capable of protecting myself from similar deception in the future. In the stillness of these reflections, I began to notice small signs of personal growth. I appreciated my own resilience, my ability to process the truth, and my capacity to act decisively when confronted with emotional danger. The warmth I had once placed in someone else was redirected inward, toward self-care and self-respect. I learned to trust again, but cautiously, selectively, understanding that not every gesture of kindness or attention is genuine. The betrayal had left a mark, but it also sharpened my awareness and strengthened my inner resolve. By the end, I felt a sense of closure. I had confronted the reality, acknowledged the hurt, and taken steps to protect myself. Life continued, but with a deeper understanding of human complexity and the fragility of trust. I knew I would never forget what had happened, yet I also knew that I was no longer defined by it. The experience had revealed who David truly was, and in facing that truth, I discovered who I was, and the strength I carried within. The trust one had lost with him was replaced by a renewed commitment to myself, a promise that I would never compromise my emotional safety again. And in that quiet determination, there was a sense of peace, a subtle but unshakable confidence that no one could take away.